500 million people are actively using an app to learn a new language right now. 500 million. That is more than the entire population of the United States and Canada combined, all staring at a cartoon owl on their phone screens, pecking away at vocabulary exercises and grammar drills. And the company behind that owl started in a college dorm room with almost no money and one very simple idea that the entire education industry said would never work. In the next 10 minutes, you are going to discover exactly how Duolingo went from a side project to a global phenomenon, why linguists spent years arguing about whether it actually works, and the one thing Duolingo changed about language learning that has nothing to do with language at all. That last part is the piece most people completely miss, and once you see it, you will never think about apps, education, or habit formation the same way again. To understand what Duolingo did, you first have to understand what language learning looked like before it arrived. For most of the 20th century, learning a foreign language meant one of three things. You either paid for expensive private tutoring, enrolled in a university course, or bought a boxed software program like Rosetta Stone, which retailed for anywhere between $200 and $500 depending on the language. The entire industry operated on the assumption that serious language learning was a premium product for people with serious money. Pimsleur audio courses, Berlitz classroom programs, private immersion schools, all of them carried price tags that made them inaccessible to the vast majority of the world's population. If you were a student in rural Brazil or a young professional in Lagos trying to learn English for career opportunities, the financial barrier alone was enough to stop you before you ever began. Luis von Ahn understood this problem personally. A Guatemalan computer scientist who had already made a name for himself by inventing CAPTCHA and then selling reCAPTCHA to Google for roughly $19 million, von Ahn had watched his own countrymen struggle with English because they simply could not afford the tools to learn it. In 2009, he and his PhD student Severin Hacker began building what would become Duolingo. The founding principle was radical in its simplicity. Language education should be free, and it should be free forever, for everyone, on every device, with no exceptions. They launched the app publicly in 2012, and within the first 24 hours, 300,000 people signed up on a waiting list. The demand was immediate, overwhelming, and completely validated everything von Ahn had believed about the market. But here is what nobody talks about when they discuss Duolingo's early success. The app was not actually praised by language educators at launch. It was criticized heavily. Applied linguists pointed out that the gamified quiz format prioritized translation over communicative competence. Researchers noted that the app taught vocabulary in isolation without the contextual richness that actual conversation requires. A widely cited 2012 study by Veselinov and Grego, commissioned by Duolingo itself, claimed that 34 hours on the app was equivalent to a full university semester of Spanish. That figure was contested almost immediately by independent researchers who pointed out serious methodological limitations in how the study was designed and measured. The academic community was skeptical, and in many ways, they had legitimate reasons to be. What Duolingo did in response to this criticism is actually one of the most interesting chapters of its story. Rather than dismissing the researchers, the company built an internal team of computational linguists and learning scientists. By 2013, they had published peer-reviewed research. By 2016, they had launched Duolingo for schools, giving teachers a dashboard to track student progress. By 2018, the Duolingo English test had become an accepted credential at over 3,000 universities worldwide as an alternative to the TOEFL, which costs roughly $200 to take. The Duolingo English test cost $49. The disruption was not just in the consumer app space. It extended into standardized testing, institutional education, and professional credentialing. The numbers that followed are genuinely staggering. By 2020, Duolingo had more American users studying language than the entire American public school system combined. Let that sit for a moment. More people learning a language on a free app than in every K-12 classroom in the country put together. The company went public on the Nasdaq in July 2021 at a valuation of $5.7 billion. As of 2023, it reported over 500 million registered users and over 24 million daily active users, with revenue exceeding $500 million annually, generated almost entirely through a freemium subscription model and advertising. So the app clearly worked as a business. But did it work as a language learning tool? This is where the honest answer gets complicated, and it is worth taking the time to explain why. The research on Duolingo's effectiveness is genuinely mixed. A 2020 study published in the journal Language Learning and Technology found that consistent Duolingo use over several months produced measurable improvements in vocabulary recognition and reading comprehension, particularly for beginners. However, the same study found minimal gains in speaking ability and conversational fluency. A 2022 internal study from Duolingo's own research team showed that users who completed the first 5 units of the Spanish course performed comparably to students who had completed 2 college semesters. Independent researchers have not yet fully replicated those results under controlled conditions. What the evidence does consistently show is that Duolingo is remarkably effective at one specific thing: getting people to show up every day. The streak mechanic, which tracks consecutive days of practice, is not just a gamification gimmick. It is a behavior design masterpiece rooted in the psychological principle of loss aversion, a concept developed by Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, showing that humans feel the pain of losing something roughly twice as strongly as the pleasure of gaining the same thing. When a user has a 90-day streak on Duolingo, the fear of breaking that streak is a powerful motivational force that has almost nothing to do with loving Spanish or wanting to visit Japan. It is pure psychology, and it keeps people returning to a language app at rates that no textbook publisher in history has ever achieved. But here is what this reveals about the deeper transformation Duolingo actually created. The company did not just change how people learn languages. It changed what people believe about their own ability to learn. Before Duolingo, the average person assumed that adult language learning was either impossibly difficult or prohibitively expensive. The app removed both barriers simultaneously. Free access eliminated the financial excuse. Bite-sized lessons of 5 to 10 minutes eliminated the time excuse. And the gamified feedback loop eliminated the self-doubt excuse by giving learners constant small victories in the form of experience points, virtual currency, and level-up animations. Whether those small victories translated directly into language proficiency is a separate debate. What they unquestionably did was keep people in the game long enough to develop a habit around language learning, and habit is the foundation that all fluency is eventually built upon. The ripple effect across the broader industry has been enormous. Babbel, Rosetta Stone, Pimsleur, and every other major language learning platform has been forced to rethink its pricing model, its engagement mechanics, and its mobile-first strategy because of what Duolingo demonstrated was possible. Rosetta Stone, which had resisted the subscription model for decades, finally transitioned away from its premium boxed software format. The average price point for digital language learning products dropped dramatically across the board between 2012 and 2020. Apps like HelloTalk, Tandem, and Italki, which connect learners with native speakers for conversation practice, grew rapidly in part because Duolingo created a massive new population of beginner and intermediate learners who eventually needed tools that could take them further than gamified exercises could. Duolingo has also made choices that reveal its priorities. The company has consistently prioritized engagement metrics over learning outcome metrics in its product decisions. Features that increase daily active users get built. Features that might improve long-term fluency but reduce daily session frequency often do not. This is not a criticism so much as an honest description of how the product was designed and what it was optimized for. Before you go, if you learned something valuable today, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Lang Bridge for a brand new video every single day. We will see you in the next one.